Good morning and welcome to the Twitter Jabs. If you missed the news updates and the sports updates, well, you're going to love the Twitter Jabs. And what we usually do here is we tell you what is happening on the Twitter streets. And my, oh my, haven't they been busy with the firing of the interns just earlier this week by the Ministry of Health, telling them to vacate all government hospitals within a week. My name is Sandra Kopp and I am joined in studio by my co-host Shivan. Good morning, Shivan.
Good morning, Sandra. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I love the color.
The color coordination?
Bright today, yes. We're twinning. Well, let's dive right into it with our first tweet coming from the Uganda Medical Association. Hospitals chasing interns from hospitals without solving the issues is unprofessional. At Ministry of Health, UG won't operate without interns. We must strengthen the health workforce of Uganda by addressing their welfare.
I think that's very true. I mean, what is a country without doctors, but also what is a country without intern medical personnel? In one or the other, whether we like it or not, I do not think firing them and getting rid of them and telling them to return every hospital tool that is in their possession so that they can bring in other people is the right way to go. I think we all need to sit down on a round table and figure out what's going on, because at the end of the day, we definitely need them.
Yeah, they are essential workers.
Yes, they are.
After all. Well, firing them is not the solution, as they're saying. And Mordecai Murisa, Echiton Tome. What does that mean?
Echiton Tome. To me, it sounds like a...
Anyways, President Museveni has on several occasions promised salary enhancement to medical interns around the country, a promise that's yet to be kept. I am disappointed by the decision by the government to fire them while on their strike. And that is at the UMA officials, hashtag medical interns Uganda. It's quite unfortunate that they got fired while on strike, and all they're asking is for what they need. Yeah,
and it's quite upset because when you look at even the number, because I was reading and it's up to 1,403 medical interns, and apparently they handle 80% of the patients in these medical facilities.
Yes, they
do. We need them. I mean, these are people that are bettering our future. These are people that are trying to make our medical sector change, our health sector change. But our next tweet comes in from Dr. Kabura Brian Arube, replying to Mordecai Murisa and the Uganda Medical Association official. And it says, if your future is secured by buying lab rats at 8 million and chasing away young doctors, then our nation is forcing many jobless youth to think of how to overthrow unruly government. Going to the bush is not an option because of the prejudice and injustice, but nationwide masses.
Well, he has definitely taken it a notch higher. But I think we should focus on the issue at hand here. Yeah?
But also with such a thing happening, what are we telling the people who are in school today? What are we telling the youth who have not yet been employed? That when you want to become a doctor, this is what is going to happen to you. When you want to have a job in a country like Uganda, this is what is going to happen to you. So what are we telling, and what are other people picking from our countries?
I know,
it's
and
terrible
also as
image.
interns, I think that's why most of them suffer burnout, because then they go moonlighting, seeking for other opportunities. Yeah, because at the end of the day, you have to make ends meet. Yeah,
and 1,403 is quite a large number. If they are left out of jobs, where do you think they will go looking for jobs? These are people that you'll find on the streets being idle and disorderly. It's inevitable.
Oh, wow.
But our next tweet comes in from Moses Mubiri, replying to Mordecai Murisa and still at UMA officials, saying, thank you at Mordecai Murisa for this message. I hope at Jen Ruth Acheng and at Diana Twine and Henry Mwebesa understand that firing medical doctors because they asked for what they deserve is not a solution. I think I do agree with this, because the president, Dr. Mary Lillian, had said that they had chosen to strike because of their pleas to raise in their allowances as promised before, but were in vain.
But I don't think firing is the way to go. Still, I think, like you said, we should have dialogue, and also just not dialogue, because it seems people have been having dialogue. So I think it's time to put your money where your mouth is, so to speak. Anyways, moving on swiftly to our next tweet. That's black coffee. Even the new ones will get disgruntled and strike too.
So this is in relation to the new people that they'll bring
Yes,
on board.
actually, news coming in yesterday was that they have actually joined this strike as well.
You see, that's the thing. It's sort of like saying a child has, let's say, messed up a place, and then you cover it with ash. It doesn't take away the smell. You know, you will still know that there's something dirty that a child left there. So even while they want to hire other people or something like that, the same thing will happen.
Yes, it will. And Mpongano, MD, replying to Mordecai Murisa and at the UMA official, this delusional belief by the at Ministry of Health UG officials that firing interns in an attempt to coerce them return to work isn't feasible. They should accept the fact that engaging at Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development Uganda to respond to interns' requests is the only way out of this crisis. At Henry Mwebesa at Fumi 2110. Now, Dr. Henry Mwebesa is the Director General of Health Services who actually issued this letter earlier this week. But as Mpongano says, this is not the way to go. They can't be coerced. I think we should deal with the issue at hand in depth.
But it's not even just salaries. I mean, they are also asking for personal protective gear. So it's actually not the money. They're asking for equipment that can actually protect them and be able to carry out their work, especially amidst this COVID-19 and with the new variant that is in Uganda, Omicron, you know? So I think in one way or the other, they have a point. I mean, yes, they need salary increment, but also they need personal protective gear to be able to carry on their duties.
Yes, and also supplies of medicines and other medical equipments that they do need. But looking at...
At Mondo MRH, medical interns right now. Is that MOOC? Is that MOOC?
It looks like...
Very interesting. And our next tweet replying to at Mond MRH, laughing emojis. Mujoga, bajoga. The interns are saying, you people of Ministry of Health, mujoga.
Anyways, moving on to Hilary Bamulinde. It's okay to push medic interns, but once they try their hand at other ventures, they may never come back. Wait and see how many teachers will not go back to teaching next year. You know, this has a grain of truth in it. I have a friend, she's a teacher, and she just went into poultry and she's loving it. She's like, you know what, maybe this was the nudge I needed to step out of my comfort zone. Okay, maybe not comfort zone, considering also what teachers have been going
Yes,
through.
true.
But yeah, like she's happy where she is. And she said she's not going back to teaching. So,
and this is the thing. You see, with the COVID-19 pandemic, I mean, when it had just started, people kept on saying that COVID-19 pandemic is showing everyone where you belong. Are you an essential worker? Or you can be kicked out anytime. So you see, like the way how students did not go back to school, and then there was a whole rank of, oh, teachers, are you essential or you're not essential? So now the same thing is happening to the interns. People are going to start wondering, are they essential? Well, they're essential. And I, for one, I think that something needs to be done. Yes. So that this situation is not blown overboard. Because for me, what I'm worried about is the image that we're actually giving other countries out there. What are people thinking of us?
I'm not so much worried about that. What I'm more worried about is, like you said, the doctor-patient ratio in Uganda is very low, and it's not up to the standards of the World Health Organization.
That's definitely true.
Yeah, so that's how these interns fill that gap, because they cater to 80%, more than 80% of the patients. So patients have been stranded in Mulago hospitals because the interns are the ones who take these samples, and like it's going to turn into something very huge, because we need these workers. They are essential workers. So.
Yes, they are. And also they are going through a whole process. I mean, if you want a fully qualified doctor, he or she has to go through some sort of internship. Now, if they're not going through some sort of internship, then later you say, oh, Ugandans do not have properly qualified doctors. Why? They did not sit through it well with the internship. So also some of these things need to be looked at, because if the intern doctors are not going through their training, then where are you going to get qualified doctors from?
Food for thought right there.
And our next tweet comes in from at B2Sime, that is Tuseme Edwards B, replying to at H Bamulinde, saying, what if the Ministry of Health Uganda is to be more radical than the interns? Cuban doctors are ready to board Uganda Airlines at our taxpayers' cost. Still, stability is achieved. Is it the trust of question that needs to be resolved? Do we have to top up in budget already, or it is a hoax? Very interesting, because when I was looking at the money that was added, it was actually 35 billion shillings that was to be added to their annual budget, and that was something that was in Parliament. However, that money wasn't added to cater for increment of their salaries.
Well, it's the Ministry of Health is saying that it's still stuck at the Ministry of Finance. So is it a question of bureaucracy? But I guess we will see as the saga unfolds, shan't we? Okay, our next tweet is from Waziko Steven, replying to Bitu Musime, H. Bamulinde, and Ministry of Health Ugandan. Cuban doctors are not trained in Uganda and will need time to adapt to our common illness, environment, and language. The move is more costly than paying our own better. There is no logic to that.
He has a point.
He does.
What's the point of importing doctors from elsewhere, yet we can actually nurture, encourage, and fully establish our own medical facilities, but also encourage doctors to actually come up from Uganda rather than importing?
I'm with you, Stephen. I'm with you on that one.
At Musinguzi Alan, replying at B2Sime, H. Bamulinde, and Ministry of Health UG, saying that would be a very expensive venture. If they have failed to pay interns who earn peanuts, how would they pay Cubans?
Exactly. Oh, oh, there's a stash somewhere.
Sandra.
I'm just saying. I mean, I'm putting myself in Musinguzi Alan's shoes. Yeah, because he's wondering, if you can't pay this and it's, so to speak, peanuts, then how are you going to be able to pay the Cubans?
But later on after the break, and after Sarah's come on with her wellness segment, you're sitting down with a guest to discuss some of these issues. What are we looking out for?
Well, we are looking at, we are tracking back to see, because it's a symptom of a much bigger problem. Yeah, because we have been going round this merry-go-round with essential workers, with doctors, with interns. So we want to take a deep dive and get a 360 angle to this issue. Yeah.
Well, that winds up the conversation that we had for you today on the Twitter Jobs. Like you heard, Sandra is going to be having a guest that is in Twitter Jobs Part 2, something that you do not want to miss. But right after this, Sarah is going to be cooking something in the kitchen, so don't blink.
Good morning once again, and welcome to the Twitter Jobs, where we are going to take a deep dive on what's happening with the interns who have been recently fired by the Ministry of Health. Now joining me in studio is Mr. Alan Mbene, head of interns of the China-Uganda Friendship Hospital in Naguru. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Sandra. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. We really appreciate that you could come through and give us more insight to what's going on. I mean, on the Twitter Jobs, on the Twitter streets, people really have different opinions, and we would love to get some insight from you.
You know, considering what is going on in this country, you know, every time you get a chance to give feedback to the community and tell them what is actually at stake and what is going on, it's a pleasure.
Absolutely, absolutely, I agree. So let's dive right into it. According to the Abuja Declaration, all member states committed to giving 15% of their budgets to the health sector. Now, the plight of interns, is it compounded by the government not fulfilling their promise to give that 15% that leads us now to talk about supplementary budgets?
Now, you see, some of us have tried as much as we can to distance ourselves from politics. But when you look at all these Abuja declarations, it's not that they are not achievable. They are realistic. But when it comes to our countries, our governments, they prioritize. That's what we call priority. So Uganda has enough money. A lot of it, that's what we believe. But when it comes to budget allocation, they prefer and prioritize some other sectors other than health. But if they could prioritize health, would have a very booming health sector, I can assure you, and I'm confident about that.
Yes, because I feel you are essential workers. So don't you feel you should be at the forefront of this?
You see, being essential workers, I think that phrase became common in COVID, when people were locked and some people were moving. But I think it is just a hype, if I could use a language that is common in our age. It's just a hype. But what are essential workers when we are not doing what is actually essential? There is no essentiality in that.
Yes, but don't you think this also crops up from things like lacking personal protection equipment? Yes, and also things like getting families compensated by your fellow counterparts who lost people in the line of work.
You see, when it comes to things like personal protective equipment, I think doctors can also make musicians. We can become artists because those are songs. We can now start rhyming, go on stage and start singing PPEs, 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 because that's what we complain about every day. And, imagine, they're not very expensive. If they are being purchased by the government, it is not even so hard to manufacture masks. But, look back at COVID, when they started manufacturing cloth masks.
Yes.
You saw the budget that was involved to give them just out to the public, and they were off already. So how come back then they managed to get those masks for the general population, but now they cannot get masks to give to the doctors in hospitals? So I think we can make it a song, and we shall reach a point when we get used and give up.
Well, well, if you give up, then there's a very, very huge problem. The government needs to take this seriously.
It should, and in a realistic sense and in a reasonable manner, it should. Everybody keeps wondering why it doesn't. But if a country does not take health serious, then it leaves us, to the shambles, and it leaves us wondering, and that's what gets us in a state where we are in now.
Absolutely, I agree with that. And I would like to get more insight to the Parliament. It did approve your supplementary budget, but the Ministry of Health says that it's still stuck at the Ministry of Finance. Do you think it's a question of bureaucracy that has led the interns and the government into loggerheads?
No, I don't think it's bureaucracy per se. Yes, we have to appreciate government works through channels, things have to go through parliament approval. But, besides the bureaucracy, there is something going on, and I think something that is familiar, what is in our heads, is what they normally call the mafias. The letter that the DG wrote clearly states that the interns should vacate, hospitals because they have become, I think, adamant to what the government is saying. He seems to say the government made commitment to pay this money, but we have refused to go back to work. But, then we were like, come on. This directive was made.
Yes.
The supplementary went to Parliament.
Yes.
It was approved.
Yes.
Why doesn't the Ministry of Health write to us confirming, this is how much was approved, it's coming in this time, and we affirm our position, this is our stand. But all that supplementary, we just had it in news. They never wrote to us officially. We are not sure. But, backdoor information from Ministry of Finance, because we also, know people work in Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Health, are common people, and some of them, we know them.
Yes.
People in finance seem to say the money was approved, it's there.
Yeah.
We are only waiting for Ministry of Health to write a requisition. So our question is, why isn't Ministry of Health writing a requisition? So what if that money is there and they want to divert it into some other things? Because that's how they have been, working.
Yes.
They can, if you get money into salaries, you can never steal it because people who work for it are there. But if you get money to buy some things which you can, go through a procurement process, then you can steal that money. What if that is what is going to happen? So that's why we said, okay, if the supplementary was passed, then write to us, tell us this is how much, and this money is coming in this time. That's all we need.
Yes.
Then, if they are saying the procurement of other things that we want, to make our working conditions better, the PPEs, the medicines, if they think they need more time, then now it's back to them. But for us, we have played our part. We've made awareness. We've
Yes.
told the public we don't have what to use. Therefore, if they can give us the minimum standards, let them start with our welfare. Because even if I had medicines in the hospital, but I'm hungry, how am I going to treat you?
Yeah.
How do you feel if you came as a patient, I'm on a table, standing, and I'm hungry and I'm operating? What if I faint from table? You also die. So everybody's at risk. I've opened your abdomen, I'm inside you, and I'm dizzy because I'm hungry. How come if now a mistake happens in surgery and I've pierced your intestines? That's a complication from surgery. And I won't be held liable because you signed a consent form to go into theater. But where is it stemming from? Poor welfare. Because the money they give me is not close to enough. What people need to understand is their lives are in our hands when they come to hospitals. If I make a mistake in even a dosage, a drug can kill you. And we need our mental state to be sober. We need our brains to be active.
Yes.
We don't need to work for longer shifts. That is why you are saying government, incorporate more doctors who need to be in the health sector.
Understaffed.
Yes, because if I am working for 36-hour shifts, how do you expect me to be sober? But they are all hoodwinking us, under the umbrella we have interns, and we ought to provide cheap labor.
And sorry to cut you short there, but I understand where you're coming from, and I understand it has been a question with the Ministry of Finance, not the Ministry of Health, actually, not getting those funds from the Ministry of Finance. For you, your issue was you were disgruntled because of lack of transparency, and communicating to you what is on ground. You had it on the news. But how does it make you feel that with all this that is happening, the government is like, okay, you guys go, we're going to get new guys?
Now, this is where now we are telling the government, we are young men, and this is a time when we need to shape some things once and for all. What that later, how we interpret it, it is an intimidation. Whether the DGs, whether they mean it or not, but we have interpreted it as an intimidation. However, we still believe we can come to an amicable solution. But if that's the road, the choice they have made, we are saying we are not giving up. We are going to stand up, raise a voice to change the health sector of this country. And you see, this is very evident. We are interns, but we have pre-interns, people who have finished medical school. They have to replace us. But if the ministry thinks it's going to chase us, bring pre-interns are saying no. We cannot be in the same kind of situation. They have said no. And when that happens, then that means those who are in year 5 completing campus will also now be mobilized enough. And they will say, you know what? We are done with practice of internship. If they don't want us to practice internship, we have our transcripts. Let us go and practice if they don't need us, to do it.
So the doctors who are your supervisors, are they standing with the government or they are standing with you on this stance? Which side of the fence are they at?
I can confidently say our seniors support us because neither are they happy with the conditions that are on. That's why, it's the interns now have risen to the top of the news, and the public should not forget that all the doctors are currently on strike. And who are those doctors? They are our seniors, they are our supervisors, they are consultants. The sort of people they call specialists, consultants, those are our supervisors. They are also on strike, Only that now it's hard to fire those employees who are already permanently employed. Now the Ministry of Health thinks for us who are still in internship, we are the people to scare and go and cover those gaps because the other doctors are not in hospitals. But now if our seniors are on strike, how can we say they don't support us? They do, because the health system is sinking day by day. And we are the doctors who do that work. We are the ones who work in the health system. And we don't want to make it sink. We don't want to see it sink. No.
Well, you're seeking legal redress for this, but what exactly are you seeking? Are you seeking for the government to compensate you, or are you seeking for them to compensate you and also reinstate you as interns?
The ultimatum they gave is not clear anyway. They say a week, but they don't specify the terms. And what FUMI did, FUMI is the Federation of Uganda Medical Interns. and UMA, which is Uganda Medical
Medical
Association,
Association.
which are our two bodies in conjunction organizing this industrial action.
Yes.
They had legal professionals, and that is SEHAD. So they are trying to put a court injunction to the Director General's directive to these hospitals, and furthermore engage in constructive, dialogue where we can come up with an amicable solution. So that's what the court injunction is all about.
Okay. So as we wind up, what is your message to the government out there and the interns out there? What is your parting words to them?
The message to the government is, look at us as young people who have dedicated all our years to the profession, and that's all we want to do. That's the best thing. We want to provide a service, and we know it's crucial. But just pay us fairly enough. We don't want too much money. We just want to get substantially what we deserve. Give us better working conditions. Give us medicines. Give us PPEs. Because when we fall sick, nobody cares. Nobody follows us up. When we fall sick, we foot our own bills. Compensate our friends. They are risking their lives for the others. Please, you compensate a lot of people. Please, compensate doctors. They are at stake. And the message I'm giving to my fellow interns, we are the generation and we have the capacity to change bad things. And if we don't get together, we can't. Stand firm. The pre-interns, wherever you are, let's stand together. We can make a sound, tell the government, look, we are not comfortable and we must change this. And we can only do that if we are together, and together we can achieve. Let's make our health system better because it affects us. Either directly or indirectly, every Ugandan is affected. Please support us. We just want a health and a better health system.
Well, you heard that from Mr. Alan Mbene, head of interns of the China-Uganda Friendship Hospital, Naguru. But taking into account what he has said, yes, they need help, they need to be assisted, they are understaffed, they need a lot, yes. And government giving 8 million shillings for a rat for the COVID-19 vaccination research. Surely something can be done here. Well, that's all we had on the Twitter Jabs this morning. I am your host, Sandra Ko, but do not go anywhere, because next on Wellness, Beauty and Lifestyle, I am going to be showing you your everyday skin routine. Don't blink.